Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, The Quilted Story. My name is Kathleen and I'm here to talk to you all about my quilting, my machine embroidery, and my cross stitch projects. I hope that you will find something here today that will inspire you to just get a project either started or finish up a project that you have already begun. But let's get started first with all the questions and answers that I received on my previous videos. The first question is from Michelle, and she wanted to know what kind of classes I have taught in the past. Well, Michelle, there's a lot of classes I've taught. I've been a professional quilt instructor for years, and I teach everything from Quilting 101 to machine applique, and in the machine applique series, I teach 101, 102, and 103. Those are different levels of machine applique, and those are done all on your domestic sewing machine. I teach that class per your machine. So when you show up to a class with me and you're taking machine applique, you need to bring the machine with you that you sew on the most at home, because every machine is slightly different, and then that way I can teach you all the different tips and tricks that will reflect back on your machine and what your machine is capable of doing. I learned how to operate every machine, domestic sewing machine on the market. And I did that because in a classroom setting, I may have 20 or 30 students, and every single one of them will have a different machine sitting in front of them. And it was important for me to be able to have working knowledge of each machine so that I could help each student move forward and progress in the class with a limited amount of frustration. And that has always worked well for me in the past, so I keep doing it. So if you have a question regarding your machine or machine applique or a setting on your machine, I may very well be able to help you. So please leave a comment or a question down below and I'll get right back to you. And hopefully I'll be able to help you out. But basically, I teach all kinds of quilting and machine applique type of classes. And so there is the sky is the limit there, you know, from learning how to use your tools properly and safely, like your rotary cutter and your rulers, the different rulers, and all the different things that quilters have, and machine applique people who do machine applique and paper piecing and those kind of techniques. The kind of tools that you'll use are the kind of things that I demonstrate and show different tips and tricks on how to use those in the classroom setting. I am a precision paper piecer, which means I like to go that extra mile, and when I develop a new pattern in my PDF paper piecing patterns, I do all of the math for you. So I will tell you in my fabric recipe cards that are included in my patterns all the size cuts of fabric you will need for each section of the paper piece pattern that you're working on. And each one of my patterns come in different sizes that are included in one pattern purchase. You will usually get at least 3, if not 4, different sizes. And of course, each size will have coordinating fabric recipe cards for them, giving you the exact measurement that you need to cut the fabric to give you plenty of room around all sides of the paper pieced pattern. And then that way you don't have to be guessing and looking at your scraps. If you're doing something scrappy with one of my paper piece patterns, you don't have to guess if your fabric piece is large enough. When you have that fabric recipe card, you will look at that and you will say, okay, I know that needs to be at least 2.5 inches square or 2.5 inches by 4.5 inches. And if your piece of fabric is not that large, you know right off that it's not going to be big enough to cover the section and all the parameters around it. So it saves you a lot of frustration and I like doing the math, so it's a win-win situation for everyone. So if you are looking at my patterns in my Etsy shop, always remember that all of my paper piece patterns will include the fabric recipe cards. So that was question 1 from Michelle. Number 2 is from Lynn, and she asks me if I've ever taught at the store called the Quilted Attic in Pine Bush, that I look familiar. Well, Lynn, I must have a twin, because I have never taught in that class. I've taught in a lot of stores, or I've never taught in that particular store, and I have taught in a lot of stores, but that isn't one of them. But I think it's really funny that I probably have a twin out there. They say everybody does. So, but I'm really sorry, Lynn. I've not been at the Quilted Attic in Pine Bush. The next question comes from Dana, or it actually wasn't a question, it was a comment. She says that, because I asked the question about my perforated paper project that I was working on, my ornament, and I asked people how many strands of floss they used on 14 count, the 14 count perforated paper, because I have never stitched on perforated paper before. And Dana says she always uses 2 strands. I've gotten some people say they always use 3, some people say they use 2. I did end up using 2, but I think my next one I will try using 3 just to see if I like the difference. And I may just do like a little sample and see before I move on to, you know, the whole project. And I'll be showing you that, because I did finish that little sweater, that little Christmas sweater on my 14 count perforated paper. I don't know if it's going to be my favorite. I think it had more to do with the fact that it was very confetti heavy with the thread color changes. So that was slightly frustrating for me, but I'm going to keep at it, I think, because I did like the outcome of it, and you'll get to see that when I get to my cross stitch projects. So the next question was from Michelle. Another Michelle. Actually, I think it's the same Michelle. She had 2 questions. She wanted to know, because I talked about my last video, how I always pre-wash all of my fabric before it comes into my studio. And so she asked me what pre-washing technique I used that I felt, you know, worked well for me. Now, before I go any further with this, I want to tell everyone that pre-washing your fabric is really a personal decision. You have to decide it for different reasons for yourself. This is what I do. If it's not what you do, that's fine. We don't all have to make the same decisions regarding our fabric or our projects or our sewing or our quilting, anything. We can just learn from one another and not necessarily take it to heart that you know, maybe you don't agree with something that I think works well for me, and that's great. You do you, I'll do me, and we'll just move on. So it isn't necessary for you to agree with me about everything that I say here on my channel, and I totally understand that, because I'm just here to help and try to answer a few questions. And if it works for you, if you try it, it works for you, great. If it doesn't, go to the next technique or the next available idea that you come up with. But this is what I do with my fabric and all of my textiles before they come into my studio. And the reason why I do this technique with my fabric, for me, the reason why I do it, there's a couple of reasons. One is fabrics and textiles are manufactured with a chemical overlay on them. And that overlay that is on your textile and your fabric, no matter if it's cotton, usually I deal with cotton, so let's just talk about cotton. The cotton fabrics all have a chemical overlay on them, and when they're manufactured, and that overlay will repel any fusible product. So I use a lot of fusible web, I use fusible fleece, I use fusible Decker Bond, I use fusible SF101, I use fusible foam, I use a lot of different fusible products, and I have found that that chemical overlay will repel that fusible product, and it will keep it from adhering nicely and smoothly. A lot of people complain about when they use a fusible product that it bunches up or it gets wrinkles on it or whatnot. That's from the chemical overlay, in my personal opinion. Now, you don't have to agree with me. I'm okay with it. However, I have found that when I remove that chemical overlay in a simple, quick wash in my machine, I have better end results with my fusible products. So what I do, and to answer the question from Michelle, what I do is I always color separate my fabrics. So if I have some blues, or if I have some reds, or if I have some greens, or all like background whites and creams, I color sort them first. If there's enough to make a small load in my HE washer, I do load them in my washer, and I put them on what they call a quick cycle, which is only like about 15 minutes on cold. And I use a very, very small amount, just like almost like a squirt of HE detergent. And I do it on a quick cycle, and I will put it in my dryer if it's enough for the dryer to fluff it appropriately. If it is not enough fabric, because sometimes you just have like a few fat quarters or something, if it's not enough fabric, then I will add some white clean towels to that dryer with those few pieces, and that helps toss it so that the fabric dries. If I don't want to do that, I just hang dry those couple of pieces, and they dry fairly quick in my studio because I have really big lights in my studio, and so it's radiating a lot of heat. So, and I have fans running in my studio and whatnot. So they will dry pretty quickly, and then I usually just, if I have to, I press them, and then I fold them all up and compulsively organize them on my shelves. I know, it's hard to believe. However, if I can, I will, I do put them in the dryer if I can. But like I said, it's just a very short cycle, and it's just really enough to remove that chemical overlay. Now, with that being said, people always ask me, do you starch or do you not starch your fabric? Now, when the fabric comes into my studio, it is starch free because I just removed all the chemical overlay on it, which is the same thing as starch. So what I do then is if I'm going to starch some fabric for a project, and usually I will starch my fabric for a quilting project or for a paper piecing project, because I like the stiffness that it adds to my textile, and it gives me precision in piecing. You don't have to do that. That's a total personal preference. However, I only starch what I'm going to use in that project. I don't just go willy-nilly and starch everything under the planet, because if I starched everything that came into my studio and I then decided to use some of that textile for an applique or anything that I was going to use a fusible product on, I would be back to square one with that same chemical overlay on that textile, and it will repel it. And so then I basically added back on what I took off in the washer. So I just try to only starch what I need. I do love to starch because I love the precision that it allows me to have in my piecing when it comes to my paper piece projects and when it comes to my quilting projects. So that's all of it in a nutshell, Michelle. I hope that I explained that clearly. If I didn't, or if you need to ask a couple more questions about that, feel free to give me another shout out and ask me that, something that maybe I didn't cover. So those were all the questions that I had from the previous videos. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go right on to all of my projects. And first we're going to talk about quilting. I'm looking at my notes because I have a slew of things all around me here on my table, on the floor next to me, and I'm afraid if I don't write it down and reference my notes, I'm gonna forget to tell you guys something, and then I'm gonna remember it as soon as the video is over. However, let's go on to my quilting projects first. And the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was my new pattern that I just released recently in my Etsy shop, and it's called the American Star. And it's a PDF paper piece pattern, foundation paper piecing. And here's the block in a single form. It's a star that looks like an American flag. And I just love this guy. And you know, this particular pattern in my Etsy shop comes in two sizing groups, the large size and the small size. The large size will include 8-inch square, 9-inch square, and 10-inch square finished blocks. The smaller size pattern will include 5-inch square, 6-inch square, and 7-inch square blocks. So if you know you need a certain size in your quilt block, then you can buy that coordinating pattern. So, and once again, all of these patterns and all of the sizes will include the fabric recipe cards, which will help you determine how big your fabric piece needs to be for each one of the sections. Now, with that said, this particular pattern is in sections. And so therefore, I would not consider it a beginner paper piecing pattern. As beautiful as it is not for a beginner in paper piecing foundation techniques. So if you are looking for something simple, I would say that my economy block is probably the simplest. And you might want to try that one first and then move on to a more difficult block like this American Star. But I took my American Star, and after I made 750 million of these blocks, I know, because it's fun. I'm telling you, I am like a paper piecing fool. So after I made a bunch of the blocks in a bunch of different sizes, I said to myself, Kath, you got to come up with a couple of things that people can do with their blocks if they don't want to make a quilt. So what I did was I did a 5-inch block and I made a framed piece. And what I did here is, this is the 5-inch finished paper pieced American Star. And then I added, I think I cut it at 1 inch, the border. Basically it's a border. And I cut it 1 inch and I added 1 inch wide, and I added it all the way around the original 5-inch American Star block. And then I mounted it, well, first I mounted fusible fleece to the back of it. I adhered it, I pressed it on, fused it on, okay? And then I took a piece of sticky board, and I get all of my sticky board at Fat Quarter Shop because it's fabulous. Okay, so with that said, I took my sticky board and then I mounted that on my sticky board. I knew I wanted this size to be, I do believe it's 5 3/4, because this piece of wood that I got it from Hobby Lobby. It's table decor, and it's really a trivet. It's really something that you're supposed to put on your tabletop. But I just loved it because I love this scrolled edge, and I thought that's going to make a pretty frame for something. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, and I was going through my stash and I found it and I thought, oh gosh, that's perfect. So I cut this at 5 3/4, the actual sticky board, and then I mounted the whole thing on sticky board and then mounted that on this wooden wall, it's table decor, the table decor wooden frame. And look how simple that is. And then I keep it on an easel on my counter in the kitchen, right at my kitchen sink, because I have a bar area right at my kitchen sink. And I just love it. And it's small. It was 1 block. I got to do paper piecing, and I got a home decor piece all in one. So that was one way that I used my American Star block. Now the next way that I used my American Star block was I made a pillow. I love to make pillows, first of all. Who doesn't love a pillow? Here's the American Star. This is the 8-inch size block. And then I framed it in red, and then I used this really pretty Flag fabric that I had in my stash for about 150 years. You know, I have been a quilter for 40 years plus, and so I have a very large stash, and some of my stash of fabrics and textiles are older, so you won't find this one out in the, out in the stores today, but you'll find something very similar because patriotic fabric is being manufactured and designed every single day. So I just framed it with a larger print, and then I always put a zipper on the back side of my pillow so that I can remove the pillow form and then just get I do one size pillow form, and then I have different covers for it, and I can just, change them out per the season. So this is a patriotic pillow that I made with my American Star, and I did bind it because I'm a quilter and I have to bind everything. I don't know. It's a sickness. It's an illness. But I do like the way it turned out because it framed it, and I like the way it looks. And then it picked up, I used that same red. And the reds that I used here are a batik red. And if you've ever sewn or quilted with batik fabric is a wax chemical overlay on it, and it makes it very crisp. It's a very crisp fabric. So I love working with it because it's a clean cutting fabric, and you don't end up having like a bunch of like scraggler little pieces of fabric hanging off the edges and whatnot. It is a little bit more expensive than regular cotton textiles. However, if you ever worked with batiks, you will know what I'm talking about. Give it a try. Just buy a fat quarter and use it for something and see the difference between a batik and a regular cotton textile. But that's my American Star in pillow form. Now, those are the two items that I made with my new pattern, American Star. And like I said, that does come in 6 sizes in 2 different PDF patterns, one for the larger sizes and one for the smaller sizes. So check me out on my Etsy shop, maddieandme2.etsy.com. I'll link that down below so that you can go directly to my shop if you'd like to look at any of my patterns. Now, I wanted to also talk to you while I'm talking about my PDF patterns. I had a couple other ones that I thought you might be interested in because they are patriotic theme. The one behind me is called a Patriots Star. That one I made individual blocks, and then I framed the blocks in white, and then I mounted them on boards and stuck them in these little window frame units, and that whole window frame came from Hobby Lobby. I'm not sure if they still sell it because I made this, I think 2 years ago, and then I have different window themes for different holidays. Like I have a Christmas one, and I have a fall one, and I have an Easter one and a Valentine one, and this is my patriotic one called Patriots Star. This is machine paper pieced, and the star in the blue there, the star's white, that's on the blue fabric, is machine applique on. You can machine applique using your buttonhole stitch, your zigzag stitch, or you could even straight stitch it on because you're going to be using fusible web, and it will adhere it temporarily, and then if you just sew around the actual edge of the star just to permanently adhere it to the project, you'll be all set. Now, you could eliminate that star applique altogether and just use a star all over print like I used in this part of the American Star flag, the American Star pattern that I have. This is a really pretty blue and white star fabric, and that would be great. That would be perfect for that star area instead of the applique. If you don't enjoy applique, or you're a little hesitant to do a star because it does have, the points. But that's another one. That one's called the Patriots Star, and that's already in my Etsy shop. And that once again comes in several sizes, and it includes the fabric recipe cards. Now the other one that I have is another pillow, and it is called Fireworks. I showed this previously in one of my videos. I think it was my first video. This one's called the Fireworks Pillow, but I thought I would show it to you today because it is patriotic theme. This is my triangle log cabin paper pieced block, and I made it when you bring the blocks together, it formed these stars, and so I named this pillow Fireworks. I also designed a full-size quilt that I donated. I made the quilt. It's called Fireworks, and I donated it to Fisher House for proceeds being earned to give to Fisher House, and that's for our military. And so that one turned out really, really good. I love having this. I call this my memory pillow because I made that quilt first for the donation to Fisher House, and I wanted to have something to remind me every day during my patriotic decor months in the year that I did something great and wonderful that made my heart just sing when I made that quilt and donated it to Fisher House. So I hope that maybe you don't want to make a whole quilt, but maybe you want to make a pillow. So, or you could just make some smaller blocks and make little pillows that you set in a dough bowl. I can never say that right. The dough bowl. Okay. Okay. Speech 101 here. So anywho, that is my Fireworks pillow. And I love that one. So that one, once again, I did put a zipper on that, and I used that same flag fabric on the back of that, and I did bind this little guy. This one is 20 inches square. So that one sits on my foyer bench, so I get to see it every day, and I just love that. Now, let me look at my notes and see where we're at. I showed all of my previous finishes. Let's move on to machine embroidery. Now, my machine embroidery, I machine embroider on a multi-needle Brother PR655. It's a free arm machine. It's a large machine. It's very heavy. It's not one that you pack all up and you take to class. It is a professional's model. I do love it because it does have 6 needles, so I can have 6 colors of thread going at one time. It does have a free arm, which means I do not have to worry about the backs of things, like if I'm embroidering on a shirt or something that has a back like a bag. And so I do love that. I've had that machine since 2015, so about 8 years. I've put thousands of hours on it. I love it. And the stitch quality is unsurpassed. I cannot say enough about my Brother PR655. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to have a PR655. You can have your basic flatbed model embroidery machine to do a lot of the same projects. They just use different techniques to achieve those finished products. So I would just want to show you a couple things that I've made previously, and one of them is my USA sign. This is a machine applique file design from Itch to Stitch originally. It is now under the Designs by Juju. She purchased all of the rights of Christie's patterns from Itch to Stitch. I used to be a field tester for Itch to Stitch back years ago, and I just love the quality of their designs. They're very well executed. She leaves no detail unturned. She just really knew what she was doing when she designed her appliques and her fonts. I have just about everything that she ever designed. So this is a USA, and it's a machine applique. And I did the same thing. I mounted it. I stitched it. When I stitched it on my embroidery machine, I stitched it through batting as my stabilizer to give it like a little bit of a poofy look. And then I mounted it on my sticky board. And then I used a piece of red batik on a piece of sticky board for a double mount. And then I just added a simple bow, and it's cinched in the center. And then I just glued that red foam star to the center of it to hide the multitude of sins of the center of my bow, because I am not good at making bows, but you know, you can't tell when you look at this one. So I just keep trying. So anyway, that, and I just mounted the whole thing on a picture frame. It's like a wooden slatted picture frame type of thing. You could hang a picture on it, or, you know, like I said, I mounted this thing on it. And I got that at like TJ Maxx or something, and they're very inexpensive. So check those out. I like it because it does have that little picture frame, you know, so it'll stand up, and then it's easy to display. So that's my first project, previous project that I wanted to show you that I used on my embroidery machine. The next thing I do a lot of. I have probably made over 250 of decorated kitchen towels. And this is my patriotic one, and it's the Bomb Pop Trio. It's the little icicle or popsicle design, and then I just use the letters USA in the center. And this design is originally from Baby K's appliques. I used to blog for Baby K appliques, and then she sold her business to Gemini Red Embroidery Designs, I think it's called. And I'll try to link those down below so that you guys, if you guys like these designs and you have an embroidery machine, you can go and find them. Once again, Teresa's designs Teresa was the original designer for Baby K's. Her designs are very well executed and no detail left unturned. So you will enjoy all of her designs and her fonts. This font is also from her. And I do believe that font is called Penguin Grins. I don't know. I think so. I'll link it down below. I'll look it up and make sure I have it right so that when you go to Gemini Red Designs, you'll be able to find it fairly quick. So that's what I do. And I do a lot of kitchen towels, and that's a great project to do for gift giving and whatnot. And it doesn't matter what kind of embroidery machine you have, because it is a flat product. It doesn't have a back to it, and meaning like on a shirt, like you have a front and you have a back, you don't have to worry about that, and it's a flatbed project. So that's a great one to do. You could do a group of kitchen towels for somebody as a gift and do one for every holiday, maybe a group of 6. That's what I usually do. And people love those because they hang them on their kitchen stove fronts or their dishwasher fronts. And it's a great way to bring color and the holiday theme to their kitchen. So those are the 2 machine embroidery projects that I have for you today that are previous finishes. Let's move on to my cross stitch projects, because I know everybody wants to know what I've been doing. So let's see. The first thing I want to talk to you about is my 2 previous finishes, and they're patriotic, and I'm dropping everything at my feet here, so let me pick it up. My 2 previous finishes, the first one is a really big one, and it's called One Nation by Bygone Stitches. And this was a really big project. However, it was a simple project, but it was a big project because, you know, it's like 24 by 30 or something like that, or 20 by 30, I don't know. I stitched mine on 32 count vintage country mocha, 2 threads over 2. So that's the pattern, and it's still available. I got mine on 1, 2, 3 stitch, so I'm sure you can still find it there. But here it is. I put it on this board so that I can hopefully show the whole thing. Oh, good. I can. Let me see. Okay. So here it is in finished form. It has all the 50 states and the 50 stars, and then some extra stars here on the bottom, and some different little motifs on, you know, the ends of the stars. And they're all the states are in the order they were added to the Union. So I just love this. I love anything patriotic anyway, and I'm telling you, this is a fabulous stitch. I really enjoyed working on it. Now, I did change the colors. I used the variegated red from DMC because I do believe you needed like I don't know. You needed a lot of them. You needed a lot. And that's why I got the DMC red. Now what I did was, so that I could make sure that I got plenty of variegation, is I cut my thread, and then when I would, I would stitch with 2 strands, and then when I ended it, I would see, am I on the lighter end of it or if I'm on the darker end of the red? And then when I picked my next 2 pieces, I would do the opposite. So if I ended in red and dark, then I would start up in the red in the lighter end of the variegation. And that gave me more variegation. So if you look at, like, say on those stars, you can see how I got more variegation with that by using that method. Now the blue was just the DMC equivalent in blue, plain blue. It wasn't a variegated, and the white was, I do believe, the 3865 in the DMC. So the most expensive part of this project was the fabric, because you need a good sized piece. But I really, really, really love the way it turned out. I am going to frame this because it's going to be a permanent piece in my home. I really do love it. So, and I know a lot of cross stitchers have stitched that up, and I seen it on Floss Tube, and I also seen it on Instagram, done by, dozens of cross stitchers. And as soon as I seen it, I thought, I have to stitch that. So that was my first Patriotic previous finish. My next one is All American by Primrose Cottage. And I started this project a while ago. I want to say maybe about 6 months ago, and I literally just finished it last week because I got discouraged. I got about 2/3 of the way down. I only had this much to do left on it, and I was trying to convince myself I didn't like the color of my thread. It wasn't the pattern, it wasn't my fabric. I didn't like my thread color. I felt like it wasn't bright enough, you know what I mean? And the only thing, I used all the call for colors except for the red. I chose ribbon red instead, and I should not have done that because the one that they call for, let me see, is Louisiana hot sauce, and I should have used that. I really should have. But I persevered and I finished it up, and now that I have it finished, I really do like it. So I'm glad I did finish it, and I'm gonna double mount it with some Patriotic fabric behind it, and I think it'll help make the thread colors pop, better. But here it is, and that's All American by Primrose Cottage Stitches, and I stitched this on 25 count vintage country mocha, 2 threads over 2. Now, here's my question to all you people. This is the first time I've ever stitched on 25 count. And like I said, that was a called for fabric count it was what they used in the model. And while I loved stitching on it, I was wondering, should I have used 3 strands of floss because it was 25 count over 2, and then that would have made it, what, 12 and a half, like a 12.5 count fabric. So should have I used 3 strands? I don't know. And so that's why I was wondering if maybe it would have been more vibrant if I had used 3 strands. So leave me a comment below and let me know, if you stitch on 25 count and you go over 2 threads, how many threads do you normally use? But I do like the way it turned out. I love all of Primrose Cottage Stitches Subway artwork like this. I want to do them all. I just love this one. But I started off with this one, and I really do like it. I am going to frame this one. I'm thinking about using like a white. No, I'm not going to frame it. That's right. I'm going to mount it because I want to put fabric behind it to bring this color, these patriotic colors out in the double mount. And then I think that will really help it. Maybe add a bow. I'll get some inspiration from YouTube, how people do it. I thought about framing it, but I think that with the color of threads not being as vibrant as I wanted them to be, I'm thinking that a fabric backer that brings those colors out might help, make it pop a little bit more. So those are my previous finishes. Now, what am I working on today? My last video, I talked about the couple of, I was working on Christmas ornaments. And after, let me show you the one that I had almost finished in my previous video. I forgot to get it out, so I got to unzip my project keeper. And that is this Christmas sweater, and it came from this magazine, and the magazine is called Cross Stitch Favorites. It's that foreign magazine I was telling you about that you can only get, and I did this one up here. You can only get this at like a Barnes and Noble, like a bookstore. You can't get it like, you know, at your grocery store where they carry magazines. This is kind of like a specialty one, and it really is a really cool magazine. My sister had it and I borrowed hers because she's fabulous and she loves me. So she let me borrow it. So anywho, I did finish it, and I did do it on, let me see. Let me put it on this board and see if maybe you can see it. Hold on, I just dropped something. Okay, maybe you can see it a little bit better because it'll have a white background. Okay, so there it is. I have not cut it out so far, but I did get it completely finished, and I think it looks pretty good considering I did use the 2 threads. It's all DMC. I used the call for DMC and 2 threads over 1 on the 14 count perforated paper, and the perforated paper is white. So there it is. I'm going to turn it into an ornament. I'm really scared to cut it. I know. My sister keeps telling me, it's fine, just cut it. But I don't know. I'm going to wait till I gain a little bit more confidence before I start cutting at that thing. Maybe I'll cut down in here and see how easy it is. They say you need a sharp pair of snips. But this thing is seriously confetti heavy. And because of that, I decided not to go on to the next ornament in the group that I plan on doing like 2 or 3 of these. But it was so confetti heavy. It took me forever to stitch this little ornament. I bet you I worked on it for a good bit of 3 to 4 weeks. Drove me insane. So while I love it, I had to go on to something simpler. So I did. And what I did was I chose to work on, let me see what I do with them. Okay. I got to switch up the board. Hold on. I started with Bringing Home the Tree by Stitching with the Housewives, and that is one of her ornaments. My plan was to make, I have 3 of them that I chose, and I'm stitching them all on black Cosmo 16 count black Cosmo, and I was going to make them all into ornaments, but then here's Bringing Home the Tree. 16 count black Cosmo. And I just love it. And yes, I use a magnifier with a light because I have my old lady eyes, but I really do like the way those threads pop. And I use the call for threads. I was going to make ornaments out of all of them. I'm making 3 different ones. I'll show you in a minute. However, then I watched Java Girl Stitches, and she did these same 3 patterns from Stitching with Housewives, and she put them all together on one board and made a Christmas decoration out of it. And oh my gosh, so that's what I'm going to do. However, I didn't realize it. Of course, I picked that out after I got started. So I did that one first, and then I did Fraser Fur Farm. Whoops, let me bring that back a little bit. And that's by Stitching with the Housewives. It's a different, you know, I still did it on the black. That's that truck with the tree on top, or actually the truckster wagon. And I did it as the pattern called for, with the called for threads, using, if you look at this pattern, you see the sign where it says cut your own Fraser fur? It's got a white background, and I stitched it that way, okay? But then I looked at Christie's from Java Girl Stitches, what she did with hers when she mounted those 3 together, and she eliminated that white and stitched, she eliminated the white background and then stitched the lettering in white and left this green, and I just love the way it looks. She did a great job. If you haven't seen that video, I want to say it's like last winter when she showed it, but you can see it on her Instagram and whatnot. But bravo, Java Girl. you know what you're doing, girl. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn this one into an ornament. I'm gonna stitch this again, exactly how Christy did it on Java Girl Stitches. And then I'm gonna do the 3-piece mount, similar to the way Java Girl did. And hopefully it looks as nice as hers. Hers is so pretty. It really is, it's very, very cute. She really knows how to finish things, I'm telling you. If you have not seen Java Girl Stitches YouTube videos, go on over there. I'm giving her a little shout out today because her cross stitch is not only phenomenal, her finishes are fabulous. She just has a knack for it. So, and she really puts a lot of thought into the way she does things. So go check her out because you guys are really, I learned so much from her. She makes me a better stitcher. So that is the second one that I'm doing. Now the third one is in progress and I got to figure out what I do with it. The third one is called Farm Fresh Balsam. And I'm working on that one right now. Okay. And that one's from the Stitching with Housewives, once again. And this is how far I've gotten. What's great about these little ornaments, guys, is they are very quick stitches, even on this black. Now, once again, I am stitching with a magnifier with a light. So it is, you know, that does help me. And I do love, like I said, I'm using all the called for colors. That's ribbon red. And, oh, what is the green? Let me look and see what the green's called. The green's called Little Sprout. And oh my goodness, I just love it. So that's the third one. And then once I finish this third one, I'm going to go back and do that other one a second time so that I can do the 3-piece mount on one wooden frame. And then I'll make the original one into a little ornament or something. So that's what I'm trying to finish that one up so that I can go on to redoing that other pattern. Now, what I did was I kept all of my ornament, you know, paraphernalia in my cross stitch organizer. This is my Project Notions folder that I sell in my Etsy shop. And it helped me organize all my things. I got my scissors and my threads in there, and I keep my patterns in there. And then here's the center that holds the floss, you know, that your leftover floss, and your needle Parker is up there on the top where you can put your needle so you don't lose it. And that snaps shut, and then that part snaps shut there in the center, okay? And then the whole thing snaps shut across the edge, and it keeps everything secure. So that's like my favorite thing, especially for my smaller projects like my ornaments and stuff like that, and my 5x7 card type items. And then I organized all of my floss in my matching floss keeper, and this holds 30 different flosses, and I can view them all by number or color or both. And this, just like my other items, snaps shut across the edge and keeps everything secure. I love these two pieces. These are my favorite items. I'm going to do a favorite. I'm going to talk about different favorite things that I like. A favorite piece for my quilting and for my cross stitch, or, you know, if I found something that I like using my tools of the trade. And this is my favorite for cross stitch this week. I just love this because it keeps everything organized, and it's just 2 small pieces. I can keep it next to me in my stitchy chair, or I can put it in my bag, and I have everything I need at my fingertips. So if you are interested in anything, any of those kind of project folders or project keepers, I make them in several sizes, and then I have the accessories also. If you don't see them in my Etsy shop, then I haven't made a drop recently, but you can contact me through my Etsy shop and ask me about something, you know, a particular folder. And if I have the fabric, I can perhaps do a custom listing for you so that I can get one made for you if I have the fabric. So don't be afraid to reach out to me. Now that I've done, let's see, done all the previous finishes and my whip, And I want to talk a little bit about my recent vintage finds and my vintage items that I have acquired. Now, the first thing was we went antiquing a couple weeks ago, and I found this antique wooden spool that was for thread. It was from a textile mill, and it actually has a printed thing. It says Bloomsburg Silk Mill. So it obviously had silk thread on it, probably. I just love that thing. I'm gonna put it in my studio here. Love little vintage things. So that's my first little find. Now my next little find it's kind of a find, but it's not. My husband was, back a couple years ago, was visiting his mama in Ohio, where we're originally from. And he found these rulers, okay, that were in, she had a whole like stack of them. And so he went through them, and because he knew I wanted him to make me some of these little boxes, and he made me one that holds my bobbins. Now my husband is a prototype engineer, so he can design things on a dinner napkin and make it happen. He's extremely talented. So I appreciate all the little cool things that I'll tell him I need this or that, and he will go right to it, and he will come up with things that are just boggle your mind. But anyway, he took that ruler, okay, that big yardstick. It was like a yardstick, and he made these little grooved sections out of another piece of wood so that all my little bobbins can sit in there, and they're right there next to my sewing machine. I have a couple of them. But when he was making this particular one, he didn't realize it at the time until he started cutting on the actual yardstick, that it had his name with his in his handwriting as probably a first grader. He had to probably have this item for school. And as you can see, he hand wrote his name on it in his little chubby little fingers. I just love that. So when he brought that home to me, he didn't say anything to me, and I thought, oh my goodness, I have to have that. So I just love that. So every day this sits in my studio next to my sewing machine, and I get to see this little, happy find. So my husband's made quite a few of those. I have them on different stations in my studio. Now my other item that I'm going to talk about, like one of my favorite things that I really like that my husband made me for my studio, and you can buy these through Fat Quarter Shop. I do believe they're made by Riley Blake. I think that sounds right. I don't know. Look them up. It's on the Fat Quarter Shop website. But they're called fabric presses, and they're clappers, fabric clappers. Press clappers, or they're made out of 100% maple, and mine are a little bit bigger than the ones you can get at Fat Quarter Shop, because I had it made according to my desired dimensions. He made 2 different sizes for me, and what these are used for, they're really heavy, and they got little grooves on the edges for your hands. You press your seam in quilting, and then you lay this on top to help set the seam permanently. And I even use it when I paper piece. So like when I sew the piece of fabric onto the paper piece pattern, then I press it, and then I set my little clapper on it, my little wooden clapper, and then I move on to the next piece. And then when I pick that up, it is just flat. That's what these are for, to help your blocks lay flatter. Even if you paper piece, even if you just regularly, regular piecing, it's a great way to get flat seams. So I use these a lot. Matter of fact, I told my husband the other day that I really could use another set, the small and the large, so that I have 4, 2 of each size, because when I start working and I'm doing a lot of paper piecing, or I'm doing a lot of block piecing, I have a lot of blocks going on at one time. So that is my favorite tool for quilting today. Tomorrow's a new day. Okay. So next I want to just show you a little bit of my haul. I just got a couple little things, and the first thing, I did not plan on buying this fabric line, but I just could not pass it up. But by the time I decided to get it, I wasn't able to get my half-yard bundle pack like I normally would get. So I had to settle for the fat quarter bundle. So what I did was I got 2 fat quarter bundles, and it's the Bright Stars by Teresa Kogut for Riley Blake. Here's the first little pack, and it is not laundered. So it's still in its original bundle pack form. It's in my studio. I know, write this day down. I have 2 of them. I got this one, I got 2. Can't wait to cut into them, but of course I'll have to pre-wash those before I start cutting into them. And because I got that, I went ahead and I bought some yardage of the Bright Stars in the blue by Teresa Kogut for Riley Blake. I just love that. And what do you guys think? Do you think we should have some project keepers made out of this beautiful fabric by Teresa Kogut? Because everybody loves Teresa Kogut. I know I do. So let me know what your thoughts are down below if you would like to see those that fabric line made into a project keeper, or you know, the floss bobbin keeper or what have you. Now, couple of videos ago, I showed my queen bee, the last project keeper that I had, the project notions folder that I had, because I had used my whole bolt of fabric. Well, I went into this fabric store and I almost fell over when I seen they had gotten a new bolt of it. They had gotten it from another store, and when I seen the whole bolt, I had to be a fabric hog and I bought it all, because it is one of the most popular project keepers that I made in my shop to date, is this queen bees, because everybody is stitching something with bees on it. So I have a brand new bolt of this queen bee fabric that I can't wait to start cutting into. And yes, it's already been laundered because it's in my shop. So you'll be seeing those. If you would like to see a queen bee project notions folder listed in my Etsy shop, you know, leave me a comment down below and let me know what you guys are thinking. Are you still stitching queen bee stuff? Because I don't mind adding a few more to my shop. So I was so excited when I seen that, and I said to the lady who was cutting fabric, I said, can I buy the whole bolt? And she just kind of looked at me like I had lost my mind. And I said, I'm really sorry, but I really want the whole bolt. And she said, yeah, you can have the whole bolt. And I'm like, oh, great. So I did. Took the whole bolt, and I hope to make some really fabulous things with it for you guys. So let me know what you guys' thoughts are about that down below. Now, I did want to show you 2 of my new organizers that I have recently made, that I wanted to kind of get you guys' opinion and see what you think about these new items. The first set it's a Patriotic Americana. It's an Americana project keeper done with this beautiful vintage looking Americana fabric. And the interior has the red, white, and blue stars with the red and white striped placket. And then the center has the same fabric and your needle parker there, and the wool felt there on the top. That's for your needles, and then the back side is the same. But this is the vintage Americana trucks. And it also has these little vintage Vespa scooters on it. It's adorable. So I might or might not have bought the whole bolt. I know. I just could not pass that up. It was just fabulous. Now, that one is mine, and so I made me a matching floss keeper for all my floss bobbins. So I'm gonna organize some more patriotic projects in this little keeper, and then I'll be able to have all of my flosses at my fingertips. So that's the little floss keeper, and like I said, they all snap shut along the edge. So those are mine, and I just wanted to see what you guys thought about. What do you guys think? Would you like to see those in my shop? Leave me a comment below. Let me know what you're thinking. Now the other item is a new item. I have not added it to my shop because I'm just not sure what kind of response I'm going to get from it. So I'm going to put it out here and see what you guys think, and leave me a comment and tell me what you're thinking about this new item. This is called a project. It's called my new large quilted patchwork project bag. And it is done with an Americana fabric line, Patriotic. It's quilted. It's very heavy. It's very substantial. It's quilted. I pieced the front. That's not a piece of fabric. That's pieced little squares, little 2-inch squares. And then I bind the zipper because I just like the way that looks. And it has a heavy duty zipper, and it's fully quilted front and back. And as you can see, there's no exposed seams at all on the interior. And it is bound. Here's the back. It's beautiful. I just love this fabric line. It's probably one of my favorites. But this is very large. It's 13 inches tall, a little over 13 inches tall, and it's 16 inches wide. So this guy, I have had large hoops in it, multiple projects in it, fabric, the patterns, my floss keepers. I keep both of these things, the coordinating ones. I keep those in here along with my fabric and the large hoop. I think I want to say it was a 12-inch hoop that I was able to get in there. Or you could have multiple smaller hoops in there. It's very, very, very large. And it's very heavy duty. Like these things will stand up on their own also. Just like my Project Notions folders and Project Keepers. So tell me what you guys think about this new design. See what you're thinking. Do you like it? Would you like to see Christmas? Would you like to see some more patriotic? Maybe some fall, some Halloween ones? My sister loved it, and I really like it. I even made a little pull thing for the zipper to match the coordinating zipper binding. Love that. So that's my new quilted patchwork project bag. So let me know what you guys think down below. Now, I'm hoping that you enjoyed the program today. I did a little bit of a different setup, by showing a little bit of everything that I do. And I think I'm going to stay with that format. And tell me what you guys think about that. Would you like to see a little bit of my quilting, my machine embroidery, and my cross stitch all in one? And then for instance, if you're not interested in the quilting, you can just fast forward and get to the machine embroidery or get to the cross stitch or whatever. Or if you want to see my haul or any of the other little segments in the program of the day. So let me know what you guys think about this new way of setting up my YouTube channel. And hopefully you'll give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel and leave me a comment or maybe a question. Maybe you got a question about something I talked about here today, or maybe you got just a general question, maybe about quilting or sewing machines or whatever. And I'm hoping I can help you out and answer your questions. But feel free to leave me a question or ask me anything, and let me know what you think. And we're going to see you here next time here on The Quilted Story. Thank you very much, and have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.